Welcome to Future Ready Live, where we talk about topics that will help CPAs, CGMAs, finance and accounting professionals prepare for change and transformation. Today, we're going to talk about the changing role of the CFO as we come through the pandemic and the role of CGMA, the Chartered Global Management Accountant designation that distinguishes professionals who have advanced proficiency in finance, operations, strategy, and management. It's underpinned by extensive global research to maintain the highest relevance with employers and develop the competencies most in demand. Joining me are two of my colleagues at AICPA-CIMA who are critical to the growing world of the CGMA. We'll start with Ash Noah, Vice President and Managing Director of Education and Development. Ash is currently responsible for the design, development, and delivery of the CGMA Professional Qualification, a CPA and CIMA member, former CFO in a global multinational. Say hi to everyone, Ash.
Hello, and it's great to be here with you, Tom.
It's awesome to have you. And next is Barry Payne, the Director of External Relations, Management, Accounting. And Barry serves as a liaison to U.S. finance leaders and employers to understand how finance teams are evolving. This is in order to explore the skills, competencies, and mindsets that are emerging and important. And he's elevating the awareness of the Chartered Global Management Accountant designation. Barry, say hello to our audience.
Hello, audience, and great to be with you, Ash and Tom.
All right, I'm going to start with Ash. Ash, because you're in the research and development area of all this, what are the key finance capability needs that we're seeing in the market? And what's our research saying, right? How's the emphasis of some of these skills changed over the last year?
Tom, there has been a significant acceleration in the changing role of finance, the changing role of the CFO and the finance leader. And that acceleration has been going on for several years. But the last year with the pandemic, we've obviously seen a paradigm shift. And what is happening now is what was being emphasized before, that the CFOs and the finance teams need to be the co-pilot to the business and really help them fly the business. That has come up again. The management teams of the businesses have really relied on the CFOs, especially over the last year, to be their eyes of the business in terms of, you suddenly hit turbulence and visibility became zero, and you did not know whether you were flying upside down or sideways. All the trends that we relied on went out of the window, and we had to do forecasting almost every day. We had to look at cash flow almost every day. The CFO suddenly became involved again in supply chain, in the customer relationships as to keeping the customers afloat with regards to credit and credit facilities for them, and speaking to the bankers about drawing down on other facilities for the businesses themselves, and look at human capital management and the production line. And the CFO really was thriving back in demand, where we have been talking about these skill sets which CFOs should be developing and have been developing, but they were brought to the fore over the last year. So that's just an overarching kind of positioning statement as to what has happened. We can drill down into the specific skill sets, etc., as we go into the conversation.
Awesome. I've always loved your co-pilot metaphor that's what the CFO wants to be. Sometimes they've been in the back room as the navigator after the fact almost. And I really do love the fact that your point is that we've been on the front lines of this financial crisis, that the CFO was called in immediately, if not already, to deal with and now we're dealing with the strategy and the unknown. To your point, low visibility now, right? It was zero. Now it's like, well, maybe we're seeing the fog begin to lift, but lots of uncertainty. And that requires a whole different skill set. And we're going to go deeper into that. Now, Barry, I want to talk with you. We had a white paper called Adapt and Thrive finance professionals at the center of economic stabilization. We're going to include that in the post-show blog post. But according to this index, this availability of skilled personnel is back in the top 3 priorities. What are you seeing this amongst finance leaders that we're talking to?
Yeah, absolutely. It's now in the top 3 again of our CPA Outlook Index. And, to your point, I think there's been a lot of role stretch, even more role stretch in the CFO role over the past year, all for good things. But as I've had conversations with CFOs and finance leaders, primarily, from January onwards this year, I've been able to reflect with them about, well, what has the experiences of the last year taught you? How are you going to deal with that role stretch in terms of the people that you lead? How are you going to develop sustainable skills and capability to allow you to continue to adapt and thrive, which is effectively the essence of the report, Tom? So some of the key trends that I've been seeing, Ash, they're very similar to what you mentioned. I think the sheer acceleration of supporting the digital objectives of the business, really thinking about different dynamics around forecasting and presenting those forecasts, really taking a step back and thinking about how you as a finance individual are analyzing, blending and visualizing data and building scenarios. So for me, there's a key thing here, and I think it's a significant gap actually, Tom. On the one hand, you need individuals in your team to be highly comfortable with a digital mindset and comfortable leveraging technology, but also you need those higher level skills around, being able to strategically think and critically think, communicate and storytell. And there is a gap, because even last year, almost to this very day, we produced a report with KPMG called Finance Transformation, the Human Perspective. And only 3% of leaders at that time felt that they had the skills in their team to be able to execute on those goals. Wow. And compounded, Ash, with a report that I know you were involved in later last year with Oracle, where only 6% of respondents said that they had a sustainable, mature approach to learning and development. So I think now there's a little bit of time and a little bit of space to think about things. That's really why this has grown up to the fore again in the top 3.
Well, and you're making a couple of big points there. I mean, that's astounding, right? The 3% or 6%. I think another survey I said 10%. So only less than 10% of finance teams have the right skills in there. And the role stretch I think that we're talking about is the CFO gets pushed up into that co-pilot role, but the rest of the team behind them often don't have the skills to keep up. So as they're doing new demands on what they're doing in transformation or deploying technologies and business transformation, the finance folks can often be behind, which then puts them in a really, it's as if both of your arms are being stretched 2 different ways, from steward to strategist, right? Yeah. Those are kind of 2 different role pieces. So that's pretty fascinating. Now, when we talk about those talent and development leads, Ash, go a little deeper into what kind of skills, and it might be worth talking a little bit about the CGMA, because that's where that big basket of competencies that is basically designed to help keep those teams up to speed with that emerging CFO role.
Sure, Tom. When we talk about CGMA, the management accounting, it really is 80% management and about 20% accounting. But it's the combination of the management and accounting that is really the compelling proposition, which makes CGMA, the management accounting qualification, really relevant to today. Now, the accounting part of the skill sets, we think it is technical. But if you think about it, the language of business is finance. And the only way you can express finance is through accounting. And it's the combination that makes it really powerful. So when we talk about management, we are talking about really understanding your business model. Understanding your business model, understanding your customers, being able to look at your the whole process that converts your raw materials or inputs into finished goods or services. How do you serve your customer in new ways to generate revenue? how do you leverage the opportunities that the current situation is providing in order to flex your business model, in order to pivot that we've heard so often? How do you deliver new services? And it is about leveraging technology. It is about leveraging your digital assets, about investing in the right assets. So at a high level, it is the skill of understanding your business and understanding the levers that move your business. And at the other end, it is about understanding your earnings before interest and tax and driving profitability and driving revenue, being focused on your OPEX and productivity, really, focusing on the balance sheet as well. Balance sheet is back into fashion. Those companies that were highly leveraged struggled. Cash is back into fashion. So it's not just, we're not just about management and business management, but it's also those core accounting skills. And it's the combination of that, the right combination, which is what we strive for in the Management Accounting Qualification, CGMA. And that's what I am obsessed with, is to deliver a qualification that has the right combination of these skill sets from management all the way into accounting.
So Barry, talk a little bit about how you're seeing some of the employers addressing these development needs, and the CGMA and the Financial Leadership Program, and some of the examples we're seeing in the U.S. market.
Yeah, that combination is key, Tom and Ash, absolutely, in those levers. And we've had some really, really great stories of companies deploying the CGMA Finance Leadership Program, which enables people to obtain the Chartered Global Management Accountant. And I think there are three things that I'm hearing above everything else in terms of why they're deploying this program. So the first one is, it sounds pretty obvious, but it's not. Individuals have got to focus on what they can do rather than what they know. And that's really, really important if you're looking at the return on the investment and the value that you're putting in development. And the CGMA Finance Leadership Program is competency-based. It's based on the ability to, amplify your experience and make a difference tomorrow. And that's what finance leaders are looking for. So that's the first thing. The second thing, as you said, Ash, it provides such a breadth and depth of material across the whole end-to-end and the whole process. But I want to come back to those high-level competencies and those high-level skills, Tom, I talked about a moment ago. Because you can know all of these things, but unless you can integrate and synthesize them, then the value is going to be lost. So through the case study approach that the Finance Leadership Program uses, it enables you, to really hone and develop those skills that are very much required by the CFO. And I want to come back, Ash, to a point that you made about agility and about what a lot of finance leaders are calling hybrid skills. The target operating model of finance is evolving. The functions are evolving. And I think as an individual that's aspiring, to do great work within finance and business, you need to develop somewhat of a hybrid and agile skill set, which means, you might have a specialism if you work for a large company, but do think about other aspects of business and finance that you need to be exposed to, because ultimately, as you say, Ash, it does come back to accounting, and you need to understand all of the constituent parts in a way. And that's what the Finance Leadership Program delivers. And we've had companies, Tom, like Tetra Pak, Swiss Re, we've had the likes of Hanes brands. I think we've all got a T-shirt of some shape or form, not to advertise. But the other thing as well about the Finance Leadership Program, I think that's very important in this context, is it's what I like to call plug and play. It's the ability to take this digital platform, which, is basically supported by rigorous research, Ash, that you lead from the finance world, in a way that's scalable within a company, in a way that helps the company identify and discover the talent that's going to be the talent of the future and really motivates individuals. So yeah, that's a little bit about the program and a bit about what leaders are telling me they like.
Awesome. And I want to get to two more concepts, Ash, that I know we've talked about this idea of the CFO as chief value officer and the notion of value partnering. We hear a lot about business partnering, but I think this idea of value partnering is the right thing at the right time. Tell us a little bit about that.
We all have been driving towards this shift, which is another big shift, which requires specific skill sets. And that is moving from business partnering, where we used to present the budgets, analyze the variances, speak to our functional counterparts, and try to come to causality of what is driving performance or what is not. What is emerging more and more is a lot of that partnering type activity is being subsumed and assumed by analytics hubs, which are technology driven and automated. And the need now is really for business finance to be engaged in the whole business model and all aspects of the business model. If you really think about the business model canvas, finance and accounting has usually been focused on cost and profit, which is, the outcome. But we really need to start getting interfaced with the business at every dimension of the business model. And so the customer value proposition, the relationships, the concept of the production lines from raw materials to finished products that I talked about, all the relationships that exist with customers and suppliers. These are parts of the business model which enable us to create value. And it's that value creation through the business model dimensions that finance needs to start participating in. So it is essential, as the CFO becomes the CVO, as in the Chief Value Officer, it is important to take your finance function alongside, whilst we are automating what is automatable, but really using the human dimension, the judgment, the professional skepticism, the ability to join the dots across the organization, driving the data to decision, which is predominantly now through technology, owning that whole end-to-end process and driving value. And so as you see automation accelerating, as you adopt more robotics within your analytics and predictive analytics through machine learning, etc., it is really important for finance to become problem solvers. So this whole issue of value creating is through solving current problems, and it's also looking ahead, anticipating problems, and being ready for the organization to take those head on and be able to guide your businesses through that. That's what creates value. And so what we provide in our training and in FLP, the finance leadership program that Barry was talking about, is really to give you and enable a professional with structures and mental models. And these structures and mental models are around really understanding value for money, capital allocation, and it gives you mental models that enable you to think outside the box, look at the big picture, make decisions, think critically. And all of these are essential attributes in order to move towards that value partnering you first talked about.
So that is the co-pilot role, as you're saying, and that's that move up that strategy value curve. And now, we hear the number one thing we hear CFOs ask for in their teams consistently is strategic thinking capability, which is the core of what you're talking about. So what a great way to begin to wrap us up here. Barry, let's talk about where the audience and finance leaders could learn more, the upcoming CFO conference and Engage. Give us a little background on that, and then we'll bring it home.
Yeah, there's a couple of great opportunities. So the AICPA-CIMA CFO conference takes place on May the 5th to May the 7th. It's completely virtual. Registration's available. Tom, I know that you're speaking at the conference. I'm also leading a panel on this very, very subject with two good friends and great leaders, Azar Ali Zaid from Tetra Pak and Judy Romano from the Intercontinental Hotel Group. So looking forward to that. That's May the 5th to the 7th. And then our big mega conference for CPAs and finance professionals takes place on July 26th to July 29. I'm very pleased that at this moment it's hybrid, which means that it can be online, but also in person at Las Vegas. So Richard Branson is keynoting, one of my business and corporate heroes, Tom. And we have a corporate finance track. Ash, I know that you're involved in that. We have speakers from the likes of HP, Amazon, and the CFO of Janssen Johnson & Johnson. And he's speaking specifically on the transition from business partnering to value partnering. So I encourage and welcome the audience to search out those opportunities.
Lots of big learning on that. The hashtag, by the way, for Twitter and LinkedIn is AICPA-CFO for that CFO conference. You can go to cgma.org or AICPA.org to get more about both of those conferences. Twitter, at @CGMA for more about that. And then connect to both Barry and Ash. Barry is at PAYNEBA7. And Ash is at @Noah, NOAH. Thank you both for joining us. This was, I think, timely, and don't miss our other Future Ready Live sessions. We'll be back here the first and third Tuesday of each month at noon Eastern. See you then. And Barry and Ash, thank you very much for being here with us.
Thank you. It was great talking to you all. Thank you for listening.